Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In podcast. After a week off for the fights for the holidays, we had two Texas for UFC Austin, headlined by some lightweights, Beneil Dariush and Arman Tsarukyan in our 5-round main event. Co-main event also at lightweight. Jalin Turner stepping in on short notice to take on Bobby Green. You got Figueiredo, Font, Miesha Tate's on this card, Gaston, Brady. Pretty solid fight night, man. Before we get started, please like and subscribe. Waste no time. Pass it over to you. Let you talk about how we finished up at UFC, Vegas 82, I believe it was, and we'll jump into these 13 fights, man.
Yeah, dude. Glad we had a week off. I was heated about my card for a good minute, and now it just seems like, that's MMA for you, Definitely had 2 different weeks looking at our cards. We'll take a look at your card first. We were both on 2 dogs. Neither one of them panned out. We were on the Paul Craig and the Jordan Levitt fights. The Jordan Levitt thing, I don't know. Maybe Chase Hooper's really coming into his own, but looking back on it, it's like Levitt has to control one of the best submission artists for 15 minutes to win that fight. And he was more than willing to engage on the ground. That was just a bad bet in hindsight. The Paul Craig, Brendan Allen fight, I'd probably make that bet again. Like I know that he got finished and everything, but there were live opportunities that Paul Craig had. Almost had a calf slicer. It was a good scrap, and I don't hate that for a plus 350. Then you had Jose Johnson versus Chad Anheliger. A little bit of a sweat for -1 or for favorite money, but he pulled through a little 1 unit profit there. The under 2.5 rounds in the Pierce Brito fight. I think that was a good bet. I don't know how that fight looks if Brito doesn't wrap up that submission. Maybe it was 2 more rounds of Jonathan Pierce telling him to do something, but that one hit. Yeah. And then Hebas, Luana Pinheiro, scorecards, no action. Hebas, I don't know. That one was Hebas showed that she was just at a different level, Right. Pinheiro definitely dangerous. I think that there's a lot of winnable fights in her future, but Hebas, I think, is just a step above her, Fight doesn't go the distance in the Sergey Lucas Alexander fight. Probably the best bet on the card so far, -190. Okay. This one overtakes that one. You had Talbot wins in round 2 and 3. Listen, man, we're going to talk about my Nick Aguirre bet in just a second, but I loved it. The Talbot was even money after 2 rounds. And,
right.
It's, I guess it's nice that he got the finish, but he is a future fade. Talbot was definitely undeserving of the -900. So I'm happy that you found a way to play that where you were at least getting plus money with finishes. You hit for 0.5 units at plus 800 for 4 units. Definitely the best play on the card. And then you had Uroš Medic versus the Mirtik oral buy. Fight doesn't go the distance at -200. Another solid play. Plus 4.5 units on the card. Definitely a good week for you. I'm looking at my card. Fuck, dude, it's a ton of red for these straight picks. I went 0-5. We talked about the Paul Craig, Jordan Levitt bets. Nick Aguirre at plus 550. I'll make that bet again, man. If you can get the guy that you bet at plus 550 at even money after round 1, I'll make that bet every single time, man. Jonathan Pierce versus Joe Anderson Brito. I was 2 units deep on Jonathan Pierce, but, thankfully, I was a little superstitious before the fight, and something talked me off on it, and so I ended up hedging. So just some bad juju. I ended up hedging off with Brito in round 1 and Brito round 2. So I ended up, I think, making 0.2 units on that fight. More than happy with that.
Yeah.
Man, this one toughest loss of the card and literally changed the outcome of this whole card. Caio Machado versus Michael Parkin. I know that Parkin is not that good, and for a plus 275, to have an argument that he won that fight, I really do think that maybe the right guy won, but I think that there was an argument. And truthfully, the fact that Parkin won round 3 on 2 judges' scorecards, I think that Kyle Machado won that fight. He clearly won round one. Or I thought that the round one was close, but he won round one. And then round three was the only one that I thought that he clearly won, and he didn't get that on two judges' scorecards. So plus 275, another underdog that just did not come through. I was also on the Sergey Alexander fight. Well, that was my play last week, right?
That was.
Yeah. That Jekka dude, if he's in a fight and you can get minus 190 for fight doesn't go the distance, that's now 17 fights of his that have never seen the judges' scorecards.
Yeah,
it's a really good fight. They're really good play right there. The Parkin Machado fight doesn't go the distance. I probably should have laid off of that and just stuck with my stab on the Machado side. But I thought if Parkin was going to win, that he would have a whole lot more success in the striking than he did. And Kaio's a tough dude. So it was a sloppy heavyweight fight. I probably overextended there. My best bet on the night, maybe. This Jake Matthews, Michael Morales, round 3 decision. That was turning a minus 300 to a plus 155. I really like that play. Brendan Allen versus Paul Craig ends by TKO at plus 100. I don't know. There was a double knockdown at one point. I thought, that Paul Craig, he had lost 5 of his 6 by KO. And I thought that Brendan Allen would find a tough time trying to submit somebody like Paul Craig. That was not the case. I took another shot on fight ends by TKO in the Medic oral buy fight, which, just explaining it, that was me taking Uroš Medic. I thought that Uroš was going to win this fight, and I thought that this way I kind of had some of Oral B. I didn't know much about Oral B, but I did think that there was some upside in his striking as well. He could catch Uroš if he tired out. Didn't expect that type of wrestling when he came in there. And to be honest with you, the shots that Uroš Medic landed knocked out half the division, dude. Yeah. That dude's just from the mountains. Tough dude to fucking finish, man. Yeah. Pudilova versus Eileen Perez. Fight doesn't go the distance. I'm honestly having trouble remembering this fight. Was there even a chance at plus 200?
Well, yeah, Pudilova took over late, had her in that rear naked choke in round 3 and stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Gaston.
Another one where maybe I was just looking for a spot. And then my hedges on Brito. Ended up the night minus 5.8 units, essentially giving back all the profit that I had made the week before. Is what it is. MMA, like I said, I've kind of let it calm down a little bit. So let's move on to this week's fights. We start off in the flyweight division where we see Jamie Lynn Horth taking on Veronica Hardy. At the current price tag, I think that it's dog or pass. I think if you got in on even money Horth, I understand it. I think that she'll have a significant size advantage. And that being said, Veronica Hardy, when she is not gassed, I think she's a really, really good fighter, man. She stays on her bike. She chooses when she wants to engage. And when you do pressure her, she does a good job of countering with really hard shots that she'll sit down on and then can circle off that cage. She has good head movement when she's disengaging from the clinch. And even in the scrambles, like we saw in the Juliana Miller fight, she has really strong hips. She was able to turn around a lot of those takedown attempts that Miller had. And then when she's on top, she has solid top pressure, and she looks pretty comfortable staying safe from the submission attempts, especially in that Juliana Miller fight. I think that her biggest issue at this point is that her physical size. That means a lot in women's MMA. When she does have a cardio drop off, she looks awful. But this fight being at 125, I do think that she's improved a lot, and her 7-4 record's a little bit misleading. Jamie Lynn Horth, the level of competition hasn't really been there for her, so I'd like to see this fight play out before I take a leap of faith on Jamie Lynn Horth here. It's probably a layoff fight, but if the line continues to move, Hardy plus 175, I'd probably get in on that. I think it's a 50-50 fight.
Yeah, so I did get in on Jamie Lynn Horth at the minus 110, the minus 127 is what I have her tracked at. Veronica Hardy, it's really hard for me to tell if after that layoff she is much improved, because I don't think too highly of Juliana Miller. I've tried to fade her in the other 2 of her UFC fights and somehow just, stayed off of Veronica Hardy at a big plus number here. I don't take too much stock into beating what I think is a very inexperienced Juliana Miller, someone I don't really think is ready for the UFC. With Veronica Hardy, you kind of talked about her being on her bike. I think her footwork, her kickboxing on the outside, her best asset by far. She's probably going to hold a little speed advantage here as well. But as far as well-roundedness, man, I like what I see from Horth. I think she's going to use that size and pressure to, I guess, kind of bully Veronica around. I think she'll put her on the fence, kind of be a lot stronger in the clinch. I think if anybody lands takedowns here, it's going to be Jamie Lynn Horth. I think if anybody has finishing upside here, it's Jamie Lynn Horth as well. So there's always better spots in lower-level women's MMA, but I took a unit shot on Jamie Lynn Horth here to start the night, man. Moving on up to 170, we got Wellington Turman taking on Jared Gooden. Honestly, it's a complete pass for me here. I see Turman as a much more put-together fighter, the far superior, well-rounded guy. I think I could see him winning by just about every method. I could see him winning by TKO. I could see him winning by submission, grinding out a decision. But a minus 200 price tag is pretty hard to lay on a guy like Wellington Turman here. Down at 170 now, L2. It's not happened in a while, but he's been TKO'd pretty badly up at 185. And I do think TKO is the only path Jared Gooden really has here to win. He's a pretty athletic, one-dimensional brawler. Feels KO or bust to me, and I don't know, not really sold on his durability either. I know he's only been knocked out twice, but he seems to kind of be wobbled in some shots. I like Wellington Turman to land some takedowns here, probably grind out some time, maybe have some close submission attempts, grind down a decision. I don't know. I'm going to bet Wellington Turman, but the fight probably one of the more easier fights for me to pass on the card, to just being honest with you.
To me, it sounds like you laid out the play that you beat around it the whole time. You said that there's, ways that Turman could finish this on the feet. There's ways that Turman could finish this by submission. And then Jared Gooden's a knockout or bust. Dude, I think that the plus money under on this
I was hoping
fight,
you'd say that because I haven't noted, but I don't know if
plus money under on this fight is ridiculous, dude. Jared Gooden gives up his back a lot whenever he gets taken down. That's Wellington Turman's bread and butter right there. Wellington Turman could easily submit him. And then, like you said, Wellington Turman at minus 200, that sounds awful. He does have a chin that can be cracked. And Jared Gooden, if anything, he's kind of like Mike Perry. He is subject to flatline somebody if he gets to swing in. But I do think that Turman's probably the better of the two. And I think there are times where he gets caught in the slugfest and he has power himself. A lot of finishing upside for both guys, and you're getting plus money. I think a 1-unit shot is warranted, and I might talk myself into 2, I really do like the under in this spot. I think both guys have some upside, so that's something I got to hit if it's plus money.
Likely be on the same thing with you.
Heck yeah. Moving up to the light heavyweight division, Ihor Potieria taking on Rodolfo Bellato. I think Potieria, he's unpredictable, man. But the one thing that you can guarantee is that he's going to go out on a shield. He seems to really go for it when he wants to, and I like the under 1.5 here, simply because I think Bellato is better all around. He has the upside if he takes it to the ground, and then I also think if it goes into a slugfest, he'll probably get the better of Ihor. But if it is standing, Ihor does have potential to knock him out. I don't see that happening, but I like the under in this one at set at the under 1.5 here. As long as it's better than minus 200, I think that's a solid play.
Yeah, I think one of these boys hit the deck as well with Potieria. I think the way he could win is early TKO. It's going to make this line look pretty wide. He's a pretty dangerous guy. I don't think the UFC thinks too highly of him. He's already lost 2 of his 3 UFC fights by pretty nasty knockouts. The UFC flew him down to Brazil to take on Shogun and trying to find Shogun anybody to beat him. When you look at his resume, it's pretty fraudulent. With Bellato, you're right, man. He looks like the far more well-rounded fighter. Could land takedowns, has a better gas tank. I trust him better in the pocket. Yeah, I think one of these guys hit the deck as well. I think if you play that under 1.5, you're probably going to cash that. I saw my tweet earlier on. I got a doesn't start round 3 parlay with these guys. I think we sit back and enjoy some violence on this fight as well, man. I like Bellato to get the job done inside the distance. Another fun fight, man. Steve Garcia taking on Mel Costa. I don't think this one goes the distance either. Garcia is a guy who really comes to bang. 11 of his 14 wins are by TKO. He's not afraid to get in the pocket and sling the leather with you. Sometimes to his demise, I always think about your Mahashate round 1 plus 800 every single time I break down Steve Garcia. Face planted him. The guy overextends with that left hand badly. But he's huge for the weight class, man. I think a lot of guys are subject to get caught with him if they're not careful. But with Costa, a 27-year-old man, the guy who's evolving, still making leaps and bounds. I thought he kind of impressed me in the debut against Thiago Moises, at least early on. I thought he looked pretty good. He just kind of didn't have the gas tank on short notice to keep up with him. I think he's going to look a lot faster on the feet. I think his shots are a lot straighter when Garcia's swinging that big left hand. I think Mel's just a little bit quicker, like I said, beats him to the punch. I favor his durability, takedown, submission upside. I'm not really a fan of the minus 200 price tag just because I think early on a lot of fights with Steve Garcia are a little bit wild, a little bit volatile. But down the stretch, I do favor Mel Costa to likely get the finish. I don't think I'll have any action here, but he's the pick for me, man.
Barring the first round knockout, where Garcia isn't able to settle into the fight, I do think that he's extremely durable, and I kind of worry about Costa outclassing him, but playing it a little safer, mixing in some wrestling, and just wearing down on him. I think that you touched on Garcia being a little reckless with his entries. He overextends on his shots, and Melk Costa does a really good job of baiting people in and countering, like he did in the Lingo fight. Yeah. I think that he's subject to land a couple of really good shots on Garcia and then mix in the wrestling and wind up on top. I expect Melk to get this win, but I think Garcia is a dog, man. So
yeah, he is.
I think it'll be a really good fight. I just don't have a great read on it to try and make a play on plus 200 that I pretty much feel like is outclassed everywhere except for Horth. It's hard to make a case for that at plus 200. So it's a layoff fight for me, but one I'm definitely going to be tuning in for. Moving up to 155, Joe Solecki versus Drakkar Klose. Man, I was really tempted to throw 4 units on Drakkar Klose. I think that he's better than Solecki just about everywhere. There are a couple of things that worry me, and it's if Klose gets on the mat, I think that he could easily get backpacked. But it's like breaking down. I'll think of it in a second, but Drakkar Klose, he could give up his back and Solecki could backpack him. Aljamain Sterling and Peter Yan. That's how Aljamain Sterling would win that fight, is by being able to backpack him for a few rounds. And that's exactly what he did. And I think that this is a fight where that's subject to happen. Although I think that Drakkar Klose is the stronger fighter, the better striker. And if it was just pure wrestling, I think he's a better wrestler. So, I don't know. I was really tempted to lay some money on Klose, but there are some defensive holes in his grappling that have kept me off of that. But I do favor him. If I could get it at even money by fight time, I would consider just laying a unit on him and hoping for the best. But at the current price tag, I don't really feel like laying money on somebody, laying favorite odds on somebody that I see some pretty big holes.
Yeah, and if you did, and Solecki does win this fight the way he does, make that 4 units so just the shittiest way to lose, Yeah. And I do think Solecki's going to have success with it. I got a 1 unit shot at plus 110. I do think there's a gap on the feet. Of course, I favor Klose there, and I do think Klose has got the better gas tank. That's a little bit of a worry for Solecki down the stretch, but Klose really isn't much of a finisher at all either. He's not really a guy who pushes on the gas tank, has a sense of urgency. A lot of his fights are going to close decisions. And when you watch his fights, Beneil Dariush is elite, but Beneil Dariush does backpack him for the entire round 1. Rafa Garcia lands, I think, 3 takedowns on him and isn't busy with a takedown in round 3, but the ref stands him up in the 3rd round. Yeah, Drakkar Klose didn't get up from that takedown. There's a couple other guys like Lando, Mark DeCasey that's landed takedowns in the past. And I just feel like that's Joe Solecki's bread and butter, man. And at plus 110, I think there's a gap. I think there's a gap on the mat, and I do like Solecki to eventually land a takedown, grind out a lot of time here. Wrestlers at plus money are always tempting to me as well. Again, if there's finishing upside, I think it's a submission from Solecki. I don't really like I said, Klose isn't too much of a finisher. So a bit of a disagreement here, but I'm definitely not 4 units confident on Solecki, but I do like a wrestler always at plus money.
Here's a fight that I could see this playing out very similarly to is the Jared Gordon fight and Joe Solecki, where Drakkar kind of negates a lot of the grappling success that Solecki needs to have. And we have kind of a close, shitty fight, and Klose just edges it out. That's really how I see it going, but not enough to lay 4 units like that.
Yeah, hard to lay juice when you see it playing like that. Is this you or me?
I think it's you.
Nice. Cody Brundage versus Reese. I was lucky enough to cash the round 1 TKO DQ ticket for Cody Brundage last time. As dirty as it felt, was nice little hedge to my Malcoon parlays. And here he is, quick turnaround, underdog again. Cody Brundage, I don't know if gas after round 1 is really the right word, but I think the guy loses confidence pretty quickly if the fight doesn't go his way early, kind of just checks out. The fight IQ isn't there. He's jumping guillotine on a fresh Rodolfo Vieira. When he gets put on his back, doesn't really offer much. Dude, Zach Reese at minus 250 in a debut, it's not deserving in my eyes. It truly isn't. The guy is very inexperienced. The competition's horrible. Never seen a 5th minute. I just feel like if it was anybody but Cody Brundage, and I'd be taking the dog shot here. It's hard to play Cody Brundage. I feel like I would want north of plus 200 before I touch Cody Brundage. So I can't do plus 170, whatever it's sitting at. I want like plus 230. Cody Brundage is he's a pretty flaky fighter. You see him out here like blocking people or locking his social medias and stuff after the Malcoon thing. I don't know, man. Hard place to back him. I think Zach Reese might end up getting the job done early. No bet for me. What you think about this one?
Yeah, dude. I think that this is a automatic Reese sub round 1 plus 390, and I've already played it. I think that, like you said, he hasn't seen a 5th minute. Cody Brundage is going to try and get the wrestling going, and he's probably going to leave his neck out there. If he does get it to the ground, like I think this Reese guy, for what it's worth, he's shown us that he has about 5 minutes of legit dangerous submission attempts. Sure, he could knock him out, but just at the current price tag, how I'm looking at this fight plays out, the sub round 1 plus 390, it's like it needs to happen 20% of the time, and I think it happens 30% of the time, So okay. I like that play.
and portion of his win condition to be plus 390.
Yeah, I think so as well. But another one where it's like I'm not going heavy on that no matter what. It's a play where we want to see if Reese is UFC level, and I guess Cody Brundage is a decent person.
I was about to say, I don't even know if this fight would tell us that.
Right. Moving down to the women's bantamweight, it's our prelim main event. Miesha Tate taking on Julia Avila. I don't know, man. I'm not sold on Miesha Tate at this point in her career. I'm definitely leaning towards Avila. I think that she also she could probably make Miesha quit if she stays on her. I'm kind of looking at the Avila inside the distance, but then I'm also asking myself, how much do I want to get invested on this fight? I certainly like the inside the distance line better than laying minus 145 on Avila. So, I'm on the Avila side, not with a lot of conviction, but if I did play her, I'd probably play her inside the distance.
Looking online, Miesha Tate, she looks to be in pretty good shape and everything, man. But I think I'm on the same side with you as Julia Avila, but staying far away from it. She's got plenty of red flags coming back off of a 2.5-year layoff at 35 years old. She's had ACL surgery or something. She had a kid. It almost feels like the UFC is throwing Miesha Tate one of the easier fights that she's going to get. It's almost like Marion Renault all over again. And I don't know, man. I think while there's questions, Julia Avila could be washed coming back, I think it's well known that Miesha Tate is far past the prime. She's got so many fight miles on her. I feel like the game's just past her at this point. I know it was a drop to 125, but, man, Lauren Murphy whooping up on you is not a good look at all. She's 40 years old as well. But Miesha is grindy. She can land some takedowns. She could put Avila on the fence. I don't know, man. But Julia's got some killer instinct to her when she lets her hands go. She's got some power. It could be enough, like you said, to deter Tate and even stop Miesha Tate. So I like the side that you're on. Likely a big stay away from me, though. I do have some action, though. Kicking off our main card, we got Clay Guida taking on Joaquim Silva. And, dude, I really almost smashed the Joaquim Silva line at minus 200. Kind of wanted to sleep on it and wake up to minus 350. What'd you say?
Nothing. You're good.
I was just saying I was about to smash it. Kind of was thinking about sleeping on it, old man Guida's going to come through every now and then. Wake up to it being almost like minus 350. So it's really had to find a different way to play this fight. And I think the power, athleticism, everything of Joaquim Silva is going to be too much for the old man Clay Guida here. I feel like a lot of the time Clay Guida comes back, it's weathering that storm. We just saw Silva's grappling, wrestling defense tested by a far better guy in Arman Tsarukyan. Looked good, still worked back to his feet, cardio looked good, and even hurt. Even hurt Arman at one point. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like you could go back and watch tape of that fight alone and just know that that's enough to beat the 41-year-old Clay Guida here. Clay Guida's lost inside the distance plenty of times here. Clear evidence the guy's slowing down. Getting outstruck by Mark Madsen for 15 minutes was not a good look. So I'm on the under 2.5 here, 1.5 units in total, lines at minus 145 and minus 130. I like violence here in this fight.
I also like violence, but I'm pretty much only on the Silva side. I think Silva does it however he wants, to be honest with you. If you can get minus 110 on Silva, that's how I'm looking at it. Guida's been finished 13 times in his career, and when Silva wins, he usually does it in pretty emphatic fashion. So I'm picking him inside the distance. I don't really know how I'm going to tackle it, but somehow I will be on the fight doesn't go the distance, whether it's just the Silva side or with you on the under 2.5. I'll somehow figure out a way to play that. But I like the read as far as how the fight's going to play out. I do think that Guida's way over the hill. So
I see what you're saying. I accidentally skipped Punahele.
Yeah, it's all good. Fight before that last one, but still on the main card, Punahele Soriano taking on Dustin Stoltzfus. I'm on the Punahele Soriano fight. I think that he gets the finish here. It's minus 125, and that's way better than playing him at what is it at right now?
It's like minus 300.
Yeah, minus 300, minus 320. I do think that Stoltzfus isn't the most durable of guys. Punahele hits really, really hard. Yeah. I think that he'll find the finish. So I'm on the Punahele Soriano side, about as confident as I am about the Joaquim Silva getting a finish, So yeah, that's how I see both those fights. And it's a way that I can get both minus 300s down to near even money. So
yeah, I'm on I got Puna straight 2 units at minus 250 before that line. Started getting hit. He's just kind of ended up being one of my favorite, most confident plays this week. So I didn't really want to parlay the money line with anything else, and a lot of times just consider myself more of a money line bettor than anything. So I stuck with him straight here, and I was really hoping to get a better line on Puna's next fight after the loss to Kopylov. A loss that's not really aging poorly whatsoever, and I think was just a horrible stylistic matchup for Puna. Where this one, much more generous for him. I like Puna's training situation, great coach, great gym. Dude's got heart. He's extremely durable. And even when Puna's slowing down in fights, he fights through it, man. He's got underrated wrestling and of course, big pop in the hands. With Stoltzfus, I feel like he has nothing for Puna on the feet. I feel like he's gonna be shooting, and I like what I see from Puna to stuff these takedowns and light Dustin Stoltzfus up on the feet. Even when this dude's having success, it seems like he finds a way to kind of drop the ball, fade in fights, and lose in round 3. So I'm big on Puna this week, man. I think if you bet him inside the distance, likely to cash that too. Getting into the real meat of the card, man. Good fight between Sean Brady and Kelvin Gastelum at 170. I think, only like the second fight of the night or something that we're on opposite sides here. Sean Brady, to me, he's a young prospect that's still evolving, man. I know these guys are very similar in age, but Sean Brady is someone who doesn't have all these type of fight miles on him. I was live at the Kelvin Gastelum Izzy fight. Man, it's surprising that, Izzy took some damage there, but to me, it was kind of clear that Kelvin's maybe not been the same since the fight, really kind of left a lot of himself in the cage that night. And here he is trying to make 170 for the first time in a long time. And it could be just a lot of people kind of buying low on Sean Brady, thinking low of him after the Beneil fight. And I know Beneil doesn't stop many people, but Beneil has kind of proven himself to be a top welterweight. You talk about Sean Brady in an interview saying it's the first time he even fought out of the United States, had to fly over to Abu Dhabi to fight, big time difference and stuff. It was just something the guy hadn't had before, and he's a guy on the mat. People talk about, his training partners talk about his squeeze, how strong he is, the ability to get the body lock, get you down and backpack, and at least early on in the fight, I think he's going to have success with it. But there is really always the potential for Sean Brady to slow down in fights with the muscled up frame that he has, the real energy that it takes to get these guys down to the mat, being so short and stocky like he is. And while I think guys like Beneil, who have excellent cardio, could capitalize on that, I'm worried that this cut to 170 for Kelvin is going to not allow him to step on the gas when needed. So I see the fight playing out pretty close. I do think it goes to decision at a high clip. And while I kind of favor Brady, I don't see where Brady runs away with the fight. So I can't lay the chalk on him, although it's going to be my pick. But I think we disagree here. I think you got a little play on Gastelum here.
Yeah, I like Gastelum here, man. I think he's been fighting bigger guys his whole career, 5-round fights his whole career. As long as he comes into this and makes weight good, I think that under Henry Cejudo's tutelage, that he's in good hands, man. Like, I think that if he's got his weight down, Henry said it himself, he has all the tools to become a champion. And I really do believe that. If he can make Sean Brady work for the first round, I think that he could absolutely break him exactly like Belal Muhammad did. He stopped every single one of the takedowns. And we've seen Kelvin Gastelum fight much bigger wrestlers in, Souza or Chris Weidman. Tim Kennedy's a really good fight to look at. Tim Kennedy's landed 3 takedowns in their fight, and then Kelvin Gastelum in the 3rd round knocked his ass out. I really do think that this fight could look exactly like that if Kelvin Gastelum can avoid the submission, because you're right. Sean Brady, his grappling is not to be scoffed at. Like, he is got a very strong squeeze. I believe that. And Kelvin Gastelum does have a little bit of a habit of giving up his back when he is trying to return to his feet. So that could be an issue. But outside of that, like, I really think that Kelvin Gastelum holds a lot of advantages here. And ultimately, I think that he has the championship experience that he could break Sean Brady just the same way that Belal Muhammad did. So I'm on Kelvin Gastelum at 1.5 units plus 110. I really like that bet, man. Like, I think that that's a solid bet, and I'd like to see Sean Brady prove me wrong, because he truly hasn't been tested that much. That Belal Muhammad fight was levels above the best competition he had faced up until that point. And I think Kelvin Gastelum's like somewhere in between what he's been facing and Belal Muhammad. So this is a really good litmus test to see if Sean Brady is the real deal or if he's just a can crusher. And I love Kelvin Gastelum here at plus money. So
best of luck to you.
Appreciate that. Moving down to, this might be fight of the night for a lot of people, man. It's the bantamweight division, Rob Font versus Davison Figueiredo. weird line movement, man. It started off earlier in the week at like the minus 190 range. It shot back down to minus 130, and then now it's kind of middling out between those. I think that Font's the better striker, but that being said, I think that we don't really know what to expect from Figgy coming up to this weight class. If he does size up well to Rob Font, I think that he has the power to stop Rob. Rob does have a 3.5-inch reach advantage, and I think that he could obviously pop that jab and really stick Figgy a couple times. But if Figgy is able to close the distance, I do think that he has that KO power, and then he's obviously a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He can lock up any submission, and I think that he has all the potential to get a finish here. Same as Rob Font, over 3 rounds, that jab's going to eat away at Figueiredo, and he might end up finding the kill shot. So the under is what I like on this fight. I think that we've got 2. I like the fact that we haven't seen Figgy. I think that he could come in undersized and Rob Font look like a stud, and then I also think that Figgy could show us that he's still just as dangerous, 10 pounds apart from what the weight class that he was absolutely running. Potential for finishes on both sides, and I think I'm on the under in this fight.
I was one of the people that completely misread this line movement on Rob Font. I'm 2 units deep on him at minus 185 here. I think Figgy released that fixture of himself at Fight Ready, looking shredded. I think a lot of people putting stock into that, and potentially how much the weight cut was taken out of him at 125. But, typically, I don't know, man. I know Rob Font's never held a belt, never fought for a belt, but I think it's in a much tougher division, man. I just rate Rob Font as a better fighter than Figueiredo in my mind. I really do, and then talk about the size and reach advantage here. The way he uses that jab, the size is going to be nice. We got a bigger cage here for him to use that footwork and stuff to keep his distance. And while his chin does get some flack, he's not been stopped by shots before. Chito Vera kicked him in the front, kicked him to the face, and he still didn't get stopped. So, I don't know. And also, I'm not really in the business of betting TKOs at bantamweight when the guy we're banking on getting that used to be a flyweight. I don't know, man. I'm not necessarily sold on Figgy. I think he was kind of a weight bully at 125 with the power and stuff, and as soon as those weight cuts kind of got hard and he couldn't do it, he went running, man. I don't really think Figueiredo has too many fights left in his career, to be honest. I think he's made his money at 35. Moving to the United States for fight camps isn't fun anymore. I truly think this is if it doesn't go well at bantamweight, I think we see Figueiredo retire pretty soon. I like Rob Font to get the job done here. I could see a late finish. I could see a decision, but I'm pretty confident on him, man. I like Rob Font to get the job done.
Another thing we didn't touch on is this is Figgy's first unique opponent in 3 years, man. He had a quadrilogy with Brandon Moreno, and it's anybody's guess what he's going to look like against somebody other than Brandon Moreno when he just hit the 35 mark at 135 pounds. Like, there is usually a pretty significant drop off at that point.
For Brazilians in particular, too.
Yeah.
Co-main event, Jalin Turner taking on Bobby Green. We lost Dan Hooker here, man, but still ended up with a dang good fight. Am I starting this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I first saw this fight announced, I was kind of confident in Jalin Turner. Looking, through Twitter, the media day interviews and stuff, Jalin Turner is kind of talking about how he kind of felt forced to take the fight, and I don't know, man. I'm not getting the best mentality vibe from him. I don't get a ton of confidence from him. He just kind of didn't look himself. I do know early on in this fight, he's going to be an absolute handful for Bobby Green. He's got that big cage to use his range that he wants to. It's going to be Bobby who's going to have to try to close that space. I love the front kick that Jalin Turner uses. It's nasty the way he switches levels to it. He'll kick your legs, your body. He'll go up top with it. There's not a lot of guys that are eating what Dan Hooker did in the second round there. Bobby already keeps his hands low. I feel like the head kick is there. You've heard Brad Riddell just talk about the power that Jalin Turner has. This guy's 6'3" for lightweight, man. But that also brings you to the point where he missed weight last time, and now he's taking it on short notice after Thanksgiving. There's a chance he doesn't make weight again here, and I feel like Bobby Green doesn't care. So I almost feel like it could be to his demise where Jalin Turner just is a weight bully and comes in here and gets the job done early, or it could be kind of like the Dan Hooker fight where he starts to slow down and Bobby starts to take over early. I really wish that Bobby offered more of a wrestling threat here than just kind of a boxing threat, because I don't know if he's going to have the what it takes to wear on that gas tank of Turner. I'm going to pick Jalin Turner, but I do think live betting Bobby Green somewhere in the second round honestly could be a really, really good play if you start seeing the tides turning.
So, dude, I really think that this is the way that you play the fight, man. The under, like I can't get away from it, man. You look at Jalin Turner before fighting Mateusz Gamrot, who is a decision machine, and then Dan Hooker, who has an ungodly chin. He's on a 5-fight first or second round finishing streak. And then Bobby Green, on the other hand, he's 37 now and was known as the split decision king. He's now 5 fights in a row not seeing the judges' scorecards. This is an absolute banger, dude. You got Jalin Turner, who's not going to make weight. He's probably going to have to give up a percentage of his purse, so he probably won't have the best cardio. He's
going to be bonus hunting.
What was that?
Going to bonus hunt to replace that percentage.
Going to bonus hunt. Bobby Green, who's been knocked out now a couple times, or finished at least a couple times when he was never getting finished, and it seems like he's becoming way more aggressive with his striking. Dude, I think that this has under written all over it, and you're getting the under 2.5 at minus or plus 105, and you can get the fight doesn't go at like minus 150. I think that Turner is the one who's has more upside for the finish, but Bobby Green definitely known to have the cardio and everything, and if that's not up to par on Jalin Turner's size, Green can expose that down the line. So yeah. I like the under in this fight way more than I like trying to pick a side right here.
I like it.
Moving on to the main event, Beneil Dariush taking on Arman Tsarukyan at 155. I'm going to start this off by saying I got $100 on Tsarukyan minus 105, and since the lines moved to minus 300, it's obviously dog or pass to me at this point. It's really turned me off from trying to play Tsarukyan, even though I do see him having the edge here. This is not a clean-cut win by any means. Dariush is one of the highest level 155ers on the planet. I have a hard time believing that anybody's going to come in there and just absolutely wipe the floor with him. Obviously, we saw a little bit of that against Charles Oliveira, but he's also kind of an exception to that rule as well. I think when you get two guys who are this high-level wrestlers, you get a fight on the feet. And although I do think that Tsarukyan has a lot of upside in where he's at in his career, I do think that he's a little unpolished on the feet for what I would like to play at minus 300. Beneil certainly puts himself in the positions to get the finish. He throws some pretty wild stuff, and he throws really, really hard. At the current price tag, I think that it is only dog or pass right here. And even though I've got Tsarukyan ticket at even money, Benny at plus 250 seems a little outrageous, man. I might just put $100 on Beneil Dariush, and it'll be a free $150 if Benny wins, and just a null bet if Tsarukyan wins. Just the price tag's ridiculous. So Tsarukyan, I think in an even fight, I think he's going to edge this out. I have a hard time believing he's just going to run away with this fight. Benny's got really, really good defensive grappling. We saw that in the Mateusz Gamrot fight. He forces some really wild scrambles, and if Tsarukyan isn't bringing a lot of damage from the top control he hopes to have, I don't think that he's going to just wipe the floor with him. So Tsarukyan's the pick. That's final. So
you didn't want to track that minus 105?
I wanted to, dude. I wanted to, but they didn't even have the fight up the time that I hit it on DK, and is what it is.
I'm just messing with you. I respect you not tracking it. I did track the minus 195 there that sat there for a couple days, though. And even with that line, both of us still sitting pretty looking at the current line, And you're right. I'm glad you talked up Beneil, man. He's got a very respectable game, dating back to a nasty, jiu-jitsu gi game. Competing all the time. The guys, like you said, in the Mateusz Gamrot fight showed me he has phenomenal scrambles. He'll dive on a leg to get back to his feet. Southpaw stance, man. Nice left hand, the one he cracked Mateusz with. You You could probably heard that a mile away. He's got a nice body kick. And you know, I think we were both on Gamrot that night, and it was kind of a fight that I was just like, oh shit, man. You know, Beneil does still have it, because prior to that, you know, when he got knocked out by Alexander Hernandez and Edson Barboza, like, I didn't really think Beneil Dariush would ever be a top 5 lightweight in the world ever again. And in the fight with Charles, I'm kind of starting to edge back toward, I think Benny could be on decline, man. You know, it was round 1. It was a high-paced fight. It looked like the cardio was already slipping badly in that fight. And now he's in a shark tank of a division where, you know, you got to get through 3 more absolute killers probably before you get a title shot. And here he is at the age of, I'm sure, 35 or older, 37 years old or something. I hadn't even looked. I question.
I just looked, and it was a surprise to me. That dude's only 34, man. Okay. I think that the grayness kind of makes it look different.
Little white stripe.
Yeah, dude. But I was super surprised seeing that he's only 34.
You're right. Hey, that is a bit surprising to me as well. But what is Arman? 27, something like that. I feel like there's a gap in age, gap in athleticism. I really think that wrestling is going to wear on Beneil and really break him down the stretch. On the feet, it is a little bit closer than I like, but I think if who's more likely to end the fight on the feet, I do think that's Arman as well. So I don't know. I'd see one guy who I do think will kind of be calling it quits within the next 5 fights, and one guy who's fighting for gold, maybe, you know, potentially holding gold in the next 5 fights in Arman Tsarukyan. So anything under like -200, 225, I think you could still play Arman, but at -350. There is probably some value on Beneil Dariush. I really don't trust his gas tank in a 5-round fight after seeing how quickly I thought he was fading against Charles. So I do like Arman to get the job done here. Brings us through all 13 fights. I think you and I both might have quite a bit of action come Saturday. I think there's quite a bit of finishes, quite a bit of unders we're looking at. So it should be an exciting fight back in front of the Austin crowd. Appreciate you guys hanging out. We'll see you next week.
Peace.